The massive space station called Concordia Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons, with towers that stretched for miles and docking bays that could hold entire fleets. This was where the most powerful beings in the galaxy made their decisions. Today, they were meeting to discuss a problem they thought was small. Elena Vasquez walked through the long hallway toward the council chamber. Her shoes made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. She carried a simple tablet in her hands, but the information inside could change everything. She was Earth's voice in this place where humans were seen as children playing with adult toys. The council chamber was enormous. 12 seats arranged in a perfect circle, each one designed for a different alien species. The Zeltharians sat tall and proud, their blue skin shimmering under the lights. Their leader, Archon Zeth-Kalar, looked down at Elena with golden eyes that showed no warmth. Next to them sat the Vorthax, heavy creatures covered in gray armor-like skin. Their leader's forearms rested on the table, while black eyes studied every movement. Elena took her place in the center of the circle. The human chair was smaller than the others, placed lower so she had to look up at everyone else. It was designed this way on purpose, a reminder that humans were the newest members, the least important voices in this ancient group. Ambassador Vasquez, Archon Zeth-Kalar spoke with a voice like ice-breaking. Present your annual report. Elena stood and activated her tablet. Images appeared in the air around her, showing Earth's contributions to the galaxy over the past year. Honored council members, humanity has made significant progress in several areas. The first image showed a hospital on the planet Keros 3. Our medical teams have developed new treatments for the bone plague that was killing the Kerosi people. We reduced deaths by 78% using a combination of Earth medicines and local healing practices. Several council members shifted in their seats. The Kerosi representative, a thin creature with silver skin, nodded slightly. But the Archon's expression didn't change. Our terraforming projects have also succeeded, Elena continued. The image changed to show green fields where there had once been desert. The dead world of Vega 7 now supports 3 million colonists from 4 different species. We used earth plants to clean the soil and create a sustainable ecosystem. More images followed. Human engineers working alongside alien scientists. Human teachers sharing Earth's history with young aliens. Human peacekeepers standing between 2 groups that had been enemies for centuries. Most importantly, Elena said, our cultural exchange programs have prevented 3 separate conflicts this year. When the Draxi and the Marinti nearly went to war over mining rights, our mediators found a solution that made both sides happy. No one had to fight. No one had to die. The council listened in silence. Elena could see some of them nodding, especially the smaller species who often suffered when the powerful ones fought. But the leaders of the big species looked bored or annoyed. Prime Vorthak Grunmal spoke next. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. These achievements are noted. But the council has concerns about human methods. What concerns? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Archon Zeth-Kalar leaned forward. Humans refuse to follow proper procedures. You solve problems with feelings instead of logic. You make decisions based on hope rather than facts. This causes chaos in our ordered systems. With respect, Archon, our methods work, Elena replied. The conflicts we stopped would have cost millions of lives. The planets we healed now feed billions of people. The medicines we created are temporary solutions to permanent problems, interrupted Councillor Thekvara of the Sindathi Union. Her 6 arms gestured dismissively. You treat symptoms, not causes. You make friends instead of allies. You trust when you should verify. Elena felt her heart sink. She had seen this conversation coming for months. The signs were all there. Cancelled meetings. Ignored reports. Cold responses to Earth's requests for resources. The Council has reached a decision, Archon Zeth-Kalar announced. Humanity's membership in the Galactic Council is hereby revoked. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Around the circle, she saw some council members nodding in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Only the Kerosi representative seemed upset, but they were too small and weak to speak against the big species. The reasons are simple. the Archon continued. Human methods are incompatible with proper galactic governance. Your emotional approach to diplomacy disrupts our established protocols. Your tendency to ignore proper channels creates confusion and inefficiency. Prime Vorthak Grunmal added his voice. Furthermore, humans consistently prioritize individual relationships over institutional stability. This undermines the authority structures that maintain galactic peace. Elena stood quietly, processing the words. Years of work, decades of building trust and friendship with dozens of species, all of it dismissed because humans cared too much, tried too hard, refused to accept that some problems couldn't be solved. Earth has 72 standard hours to cease all operations in Council space, the Archon declared. All human personnel must withdraw from Council worlds, stations, and facilities. All human-run programs will be transferred to Council oversight or terminated. I understand, Elena said softly. Her voice was calm, professional. Humanity will comply with your decision. Some of the Council members seemed surprised by her quiet acceptance. They had expected anger, or pleading, or threats. Instead, Elena simply gathered her tablet and prepared to leave. Before I go, she said, turning back to face the circle, I want to thank the Council for allowing humanity to serve alongside you. We learned much during our time here. We hope our small contributions were helpful. She paused at the chamber door. We wish you well in your future endeavors. As Elena walked back down the long hallway, she could hear the Council members already discussing the redistribution of human assets. They sounded pleased with themselves, satisfied that they had removed a disruptive influence from their perfect system. Elena pulled out a different device as she reached her ship, a secure communicator that connected her directly to Earth. Control. This is Ambassador Vasquez. Begin. Operation Quiet Departure. Full withdrawal. All sectors. 72 hours. The voice on the other end was calm. Understood, Ambassador. How do you want to handle the transition? Elena looked back at the massive station where the most powerful beings in the galaxy were congratulating themselves on their wisdom. Clean and professional, she said. No complaints, no delays, no drama. Just pack up and go home. Copy that. Beginning immediate recall of all personnel. As her ship pulled away from Concordia Prime, Elena watched the lights grow smaller in the distance. The Council had made their choice. Now they would live with the consequences. The news spread across human installations like wildfire. Within 6 hours of Elena's message, every human outpost, ship, and facility in Council space began preparing for departure. There were no angry protests, no desperate appeals to other species for support. Just quiet, efficient action. Dr. Sarah Chen finished her last surgery at Zelth Memorial Hospital on Zelth 7. She had been working for 18 hours straight, helping victims of the latest plague outbreak. Her alien colleagues watched in confusion as she methodically packed her medical equipment into standard shipping containers. But Dr. Chen, said Nurse Vectala, a young Zeltharian, whose life Sarah had saved 3 years ago. The plague patients need you. Their condition is finally stable. If you leave now, the Council has made their decision, Sarah replied gently, sealing the last container. I've prepared detailed treatment protocols for your medical staff. Follow them exactly. And the patients should recover. She handed Vectala a datapad containing months of research. Everything I learned about treating this plague is in there. Share it with the other hospitals. Vectala's golden eyes filled with tears. Will we ever see you again? Sarah smiled sadly. Take care of yourself, Vec. You're going to be a wonderful doctor. Similar scenes played out across Council space. On the mining world of Corvin Beta, human engineers quietly transferred control of safety systems they had designed. These systems had reduced mining accidents by 90% over the past 5 years. The alien supervisors didn't fully understand how the systems worked, but the humans left detailed manuals and promised the equipment would run fine without them. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez spent his last day on Corvin Beta, training his replacement, a Vorthak named Grumtok. The massive alien struggled to understand the human-designed interface. This readout, Grumtok pointed at a screen with his lower left arm. What does the yellow color mean? It means the pressure levels are approaching optimal range, Marcus explained patiently. When it turns green, you're perfect. Red means danger, shut everything down immediately. But why not just use numbers? Vorthak minds process mathematical data more efficiently than colors. Marcus paused in his packing. Because when an emergency happens, you don't have time to read numbers and do calculations. Colors let you know instantly what's happening. Yellow means caution, green means good, red means stop. Your brain understands that faster than any equation. Grumtalk looked puzzled but made notes on his data pad. Humans think strangely. But your methods do work. Yeah, Marcus said, closing his tool case. They do. On the trade station Nexus IX, human merchants and negotiators quietly concluded their business deals. The station had become one of the most profitable in the galaxy over the past decade, largely due to human innovations in cross-species commerce. Captain Lisa Park had spent years developing trust-based trading relationships between species that had traditionally cheated each other. She had created something called goodwill contracts that somehow made it profitable for everyone to be honest. I don't understand, said trader Vex Milani, a six-armed Sindathi who had become quite wealthy using Lisa's methods. How can the Draxi trust the Morinti with advance payments? They have been enemies for centuries. Because they both trust you, Lisa explained as she transferred her client database to the station's main computer. And you trust them. Trust builds on trust. When everyone benefits, everyone wants to keep the system working. But what if someone cheats? Then they lose access to the network. Word spreads fast among traders. Reputation becomes more valuable than quick profits. Vex Milani's main hands nervously adjusted his trader robes. Will this system continue without humans to maintain it? Lisa shrugged. Depends on whether people want it to continue. The database has everything you need. The relationships exist. But trust, that's something you have to keep building every day. Back on Concordia Prime, the council members felt pleased with themselves. The humans were leaving without complaint, proving that the council had been right about their weakness. Archon Zeth Kalar met with his advisors in his private chambers. See how easily they fold when faced with real authority, he said, studying reports of the human withdrawal. No resistance, no diplomatic pressure, no threats. They know they cannot challenge our decision. His chief advisor, Sub-Archon Keth Valar, reviewed the data streams. Sir, the scope of human operations is extensive. They had personnel in over 400 locations across council space. Irrelevant, the Archon waved dismissively. They were mostly in support roles. Medical assistants, junior engineers, cultural observers. Nothing that cannot be easily replaced. Meanwhile, Councillor Morthek, of the normally silent ethereal delegation, was having very different thoughts. The ethereals rarely spoke in council sessions, preferring to observe and analyze. But Morthek had been watching human operations for years, and something bothered them about this withdrawal. The ethereal floated in their meditation chamber, their translucent body shimmering with concern. They had noticed patterns that others missed. The humans hadn't just been participants in galactic society, they had been connectors, bridges between species that normally couldn't work together. Every major trade agreement in the past 5 years had human fingerprints on it, not as primary negotiators, but as facilitators, translators, and trust builders. Every peaceful resolution to territorial disputes had involved human mediators at some level. Every technological breakthrough that benefited multiple species had human researchers contributing ideas that others called impossible until they worked. As reports continued flowing in about the human departure, even some of the more arrogant council members began to notice unusual details. The humans weren't just leaving. They were systematically removing connections that had been invisible until now. On the military frontier, human peacekeepers handed over their posts to council security forces. These humans had been stationed in buffer zones between hostile species, places where their emotional approach to conflict resolution had somehow kept ancient enemies from killing each other. Commander Zhang Wei of the Draxi Morinti border station submitted his final report. For 3 years, his team had prevented incidents between two species that had been at war for centuries. Their method was simple. They talked to everyone, listened to complaints, and found small ways to solve problems before they became big ones. Sir, his replacement, a professional Zeltharian military officer, asked during the handover, "What is your secret? How do you keep these species from fighting?" Zhang smiled tiredly. "No secret. Just remember that behind every complaint is someone who's scared or hungry or trying to protect their family. Treat them like people, not like problems. The Zeltharian officer looked confused. But they are different species. They have different needs, different cultures, different biological imperatives. Yeah, Zhang said, shouldering his pack. But they all want their kids to be safe and their families to have enough food. Start there, and you can usually work out the rest. As the last human transport ships loaded their passengers and cargo, the withdrawal was nearly complete. 48 hours after the Council's decision, humans had efficiently and professionally removed themselves from every operation in Council space. Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the final human ship as it prepared to leave Concordia Prime's docking bay. She watched through the viewport as the massive station slowly rotated, its lights twinkling in the darkness. Her communications officer approached with a message pad. "Ma'am, we're receiving requests for contact information from over 200 individuals across Council space, mostly aliens who worked directly with our people. They want to know how to reach us after we leave." Elena read through some of the messages. Grateful patients asking how to contact their human doctors. Alien students wanting to continue learning from human teachers. Engineers requesting technical support for human-designed systems. Standard response, she said quietly. Thank them for their friendship, but explain that humanity is now focusing on internal development. Wish them well. As their ship pulled away from the station, Elena activated her personal communicator one last time. Council vessels. This is Ambassador Vasquez. Humanity's withdrawal from Council space is now complete. We thank you for the opportunity to serve alongside you these past years. We wish the Council success in all future endeavors. The response from the Council was brief and formal, just an acknowledgement that the withdrawal had been noted and recorded. As the stars began to blur around them, entering faster than light travel, Elena wondered if the Council truly understood what they had just given up. But that was their choice to make. Humanity had other plans now. 6 hours after the last human ship left Council space, the first alarm sounded on Zelth 7. Dr. Keth Maller stared at the medical scanner readings in horror. The plague patients who had been stable for weeks were suddenly getting worse. Much worse. The infection rates that had been dropping steadily for months were now climbing faster than ever before. This is impossible, he muttered, checking the readings again. The treatment protocols Dr. Chen left should be working. We followed every instruction exactly. His assistant, Nurse Vectala, looked up from another patient's bedside. The young Zeltharian's golden skin had turned pale with worry. Doctor, this patient's fever is rising. The medicine isn't working anymore. Dr. Keth Malor rushed to review Dr. Chen's notes again. The human doctor had left detailed instructions for treating the plague. But something was missing. The treatments worked for a few days, then stopped working completely. It was as if the disease was adapting, changing in ways that the protocol couldn't handle. What Dr. Keth Malor didn't understand was that Dr. Chen hadn't just been following a fixed treatment plan. She had been adjusting the medicine daily, watching how the plague evolved and changed, modifying the treatment to stay ahead of the disease's mutations. Her notes showed the final protocol she had used, but not the process of constant adaptation that made it work. Within 12 hours, 3 more hospitals on Zelth 7 reported the same problem. The plague was spreading faster than it had in years. By the end of the first day, the death count had jumped from 5 per day to 50 per day. On the other side of Council space, the mining operations on Corvin Beta faced a different crisis. Chief Supervisor Grungaller received an emergency alert at 0300 local time. 3 of the main excavation sites had shut down automatically, and no one could figure out why. Grumtok, the Vorthak engineer who had replaced Marcus Rodriguez, studied the control panels with growing confusion. All the indicators showed green, the human-designed safe color, but the mining equipment had stopped working anyway. The pressure readings are normal, he reported to his supervisor. The structural integrity sensors show no problems. But the safety systems have locked down everything. What Grumtok couldn't see was the subtle pattern recognition that Marcus had built into the safety systems. The human engineer had programmed them to watch for combinations of small factors that individually looked harmless, but together indicated dangerous conditions developing. The Vorthak engineers saw each reading as separate numbers, But Marcus had taught the system to see them as parts of a larger picture. The lockdown was preventing a massive cave-in that would have killed hundreds of workers and destroyed millions of credits worth of equipment. But without Marcus there to explain the complex interconnections, the Vorthak supervisors saw only malfunctioning equipment stopping profitable work. "Override the safety systems," Grungaller ordered. "We have quotas to meet." "Sir, the human left warnings about overriding. The human is gone. We follow Vorthak protocols now. Override the systems and resume mining." 3 hours later, when the cave-in killed 47 miners and buried 12 million credits worth of equipment, the surviving engineers finally understood what the safety systems had been trying to prevent. On the trade station Nexus IX, a different kind of crisis was brewing. Without human mediators to facilitate the complex web of trust-based trading, old suspicions between species began to resurface. Trader Vex Milani tried to continue using Captain Park's goodwill contracts, but problems arose immediately. A Draxi trader accused a Morinti merchant of delivering substandard goods. In the past, Lisa Park would have investigated personally, found a solution that satisfied both sides, and used the resolution to strengthen the trading relationship. But Vex Milani didn't have Lisa's skills or reputation. When he tried to mediate, both sides questioned his authority. The Draxi demanded traditional contracts with heavy penalties. The Morinti insisted on advance payment guarantees. Within days, the trust-based system that had made everyone wealthy began falling apart. Other trading stations reported similar problems. Without humans to serve as neutral mediators, species defaulted to old patterns of suspicion and defensive behavior. Trade volumes dropped by 30% in the first week, but the most serious crisis was developing in a place no one expected: the Council's own defense systems. Security Chief Vorth Kalar was reviewing routine maintenance reports when he noticed something alarming. The defense grid protecting Council space showed dozens of vulnerabilities that hadn't been there the week before. Critical security patches were failing. Backup systems weren't responding properly. He called his best technician, Engineer Kethvar, to investigate. "Sir, these vulnerabilities were always there," the engineer reported. "But they were being patched continuously by an automated system that appears to have been maintained by human engineers." "Explain," Vorth Kalar demanded. "The humans installed what they called adaptive security protocols. Instead of waiting for us to identify threats and develop official patches, their system automatically identified potential problems and fixed them in real time. It was running in the background so smoothly that most of our people didn't even know it existed." Vorth Kalar felt a chill run down his spine. "How many vulnerabilities are we talking about?" "Currently, over 300 critical gaps. And the number is growing every hour. Our enemies are probably already scanning our defenses, looking for ways to exploit these holes." On Concordia Prime, Archon Zeth Kalar was beginning to receive reports that disturbed his satisfaction with the human removal. His advisors brought him data streams showing problems across Council space, all seeming to start shortly after the human departure. "Sir," Sub-Archon Kethvalar reported nervously, "we're receiving emergency requests from 17 different worlds. Medical crises, industrial accidents, trade disruptions, and security concerns." "Coincidence," the Archon said firmly. "These problems were developing long before we expelled the humans. We're just now seeing the results of their incompetent management." But privately, he was starting to worry. The human withdrawal had been too smooth, too efficient. Most expelled species fought back. Somehow diplomatic pressure, economic retaliation, public protests. The humans had simply left, taking their knowledge and relationships with them. Counselor Morthek of the Ethereal Delegation floated into the Archon's chamber without invitation, something the mysterious species rarely did. "Archon Zeth Kalar," the Ethereal's voice resonated like distant music. "The Ethereal Collective has been observing developments since the human departure. We must discuss what we have learned." The Archon gestured impatiently. "If you have concerns about the transition, submit them through proper channels." "There are no proper channels for this information," Morthek replied. "The humans were not merely participants in our society. They were the connecting tissue that held our species together. Without them, the body of galactic civilization is beginning to die." Ridiculous. Humans were junior members with primitive methods. Humans were the only species that could work effectively with all other species. The ethereal interrupted. Something they had never done in thousands of years of council membership. Their primitive emotions allowed them to understand needs that logic-based species ignore. Their inefficient methods created solutions that our rigid protocols could never achieve. The Archons studied the floating alien carefully. Ethereals were known for their analytical abilities and their reluctance to make strong statements. If they were this concerned, what exactly are you suggesting? Review the human contributions more carefully. Not just their official reports, but their actual integration into our systems. You will find that they were not assistants to our operations, they were the foundation that made our operations possible. As if summoned by their conversation, more emergency reports arrived. The plague on Zelth 7 was now completely out of control. Mining operations across 4 worlds had shut down due to safety failures. Trade disputes were escalating into threats of violence. Most seriously, long-range sensors had detected unknown ships probing the outer edges of Council space, testing the defense grid's response times. Without the human-maintained security patches, the grid was responding slowly and ineffectively. Archon Zeth Kalar stared at the growing pile of crisis reports. Each one seemed manageable individually, but together, they painted a picture of systemic failure spreading across Council civilization. For the first time since the human expulsion, he wondered if the Council had made a terrible mistake. In his private quarters that night, the Archon accessed classified files about human operations that he had never bothered to read before. What he found made his golden blood run cold. The humans hadn't just been working in 400 locations, they had been quietly essential to the functioning of galactic civilization. Medical breakthroughs, engineering solutions, diplomatic innovations, security improvements, all bearing subtle but crucial human fingerprints. They hadn't been minor participants in Council society. They had been the glue holding it together, and now they were gone. The emergency Council session convened at 0400 Concordia Prime Time, 3 weeks after humanity's departure. For the first time in the Council's 1,000-year history, every member species had declared a state of crisis simultaneously. Archon Zeth Kalar looked around the chamber at faces that showed fear, confusion, and growing anger. His own golden skin had dulled to a sickly bronze color as the reports kept pouring in, each one worse than the last. The situation on Zelth 7 has become catastrophic, reported Medical Director Vek Thalar. The plague has killed over 2 million civilians in 3 weeks. Our medical teams are completely overwhelmed. The disease is mutating faster than we can develop treatments. She paused, her voice breaking. The human doctors understood something about this plague that we do not. Their treatment protocols worked not because they were better medicine, but because they adapted the medicine every day to stay ahead of the disease's changes. Without that constant adaptation, the plague has become unstoppable. Prime Vorthak Grunmal spoke next, his massive form slumped in defeat. Mining operations across 12 worlds have shut down. Industrial accidents have killed over 800 workers in the past month. Our engineers cannot understand the safety systems the humans designed. He activated a holographic display showing the collapsed mines on Corvin Beta. We thought the human systems were simple: green means good, red means bad, but the systems were analyzing thousands of variables simultaneously, predicting problems that would not become obvious to us until it was too late. When we override the warnings, people die. When we follow the warnings, we cannot explain why the work must stop. Councillor Keth Maller of the Sindathi Union reported even worse news. Trade across Council space has collapsed by 70%. Species that worked together for decades are now filing territorial disputes and trade violation claims. Without human mediators to maintain trust between our peoples, we are reverting to old patterns of suspicion and conflict. But the worst news came from Security Chief Vorth Kalar. Our defense grid has been compromised, he announced, his voice grim. Unknown hostile forces have penetrated our outer territories in 12 different sectors. They are using the security vulnerabilities that appeared when the human maintenance systems went offline. He activated tactical displays showing red warning symbols spreading across the map of Council space. 3 days ago, raiders successfully attacked the mining station at Kepler 7. They knew exactly where our sensors were blind, exactly which patrol routes were unguarded, exactly when our response ships would arrive. This information should have been impossible to obtain, unless they had been watching us probe our own defenses for weeks. Archon Zeth Kalar finished. While we struggled to patch the holes the humans had been filling automatically. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Without the humans' adaptive security systems, Council space had become vulnerable to enemies who had been waiting for exactly this opportunity. Councillor Morthek floated forward, their ethereal form shimmering with urgency. The Ethereal Collective has completed our analysis of human integration into Council society. The results are unprecedented. They projected data streams into the center of the chamber. Numbers, charts, and connection maps that showed the true scope of human involvement in galactic civilization. Humans facilitated 73% of all interspecies trade through trust-building mechanisms that no other species understood. They prevented an average of 47 potential conflicts per year through micro-negotiations that were invisible to our bureaucracy. They contributed essential innovations to 86% of all technological advances in the past decade. The data continued flowing. Medical breakthroughs that saved millions of lives. Engineering solutions that increased efficiency while reducing accidents. Diplomatic innovations that turned enemies into allies. Most critically, Morthek continued, they were the only species capable of effective psychological treatment for post-combat stress disorders that plague all warrior races. Without their therapists, our military forces are beginning to show signs of systemic mental health collapse. General Korthvek, of the Zeltharian military, confirmed this with obvious reluctance. Suicide rates among our active personnel have increased by 400% since the humans left. Combat effectiveness has dropped by 60%. Our soldiers are reporting nightmares, panic attacks, and inability to focus during operations. He paused, clearly struggling with his next words. The human therapists understood something about warrior psychology that we do not. They treated the mind's wounds as carefully as our doctors treat physical injuries. Without them, our military is destroying itself from within. Archon Zeth Kalar felt the weight of realization crushing down on him. How did we miss this? How did none of our intelligence services identify the scope of human integration? Sub-Archon Keth Valar answered quietly. Because they worked so seamlessly that their contributions appeared natural. A human doctor would develop a treatment that worked better than existing methods. But they would teach it to local medical staff, so it seemed like the locals had discovered it. A human engineer would solve an impossible problem, but they would train alien engineers to maintain the solution, so it seemed like standard procedure. They made themselves invisible, added Councillor Vex Thakara of the Karosi Federation. Not through deception, but through integration. They became part of our civilization so completely that we forgot they were there. The Archon accessed his personal files and projected them for the Council to see. I have been reviewing classified reports on human activities. In the past 5 years alone, humans have. The list was staggering. 3 separate species had been on the verge of extinction-level crises, environmental collapse, genetic disease, and economic system failure. In each case, human interventions had quietly prevented disaster, not through dramatic rescue missions that would bring glory and recognition, but through patient, long-term solutions that addressed root causes. The Catherian representative spoke for the first time in the session. My people were dying from a genetic plague that our best scientists said was incurable. Human researchers worked with us for 3 years to develop a treatment. They refused all credit, saying only that they were happy to help. We thought they were being modest. Now we understand they were being strategic. Strategic how? Prime Vorthak Grunmal asked. They were building a network of species who owed them nothing but friendship, who trusted them completely because they asked for nothing in return. While we saw them as primitive newcomers seeking our approval, they were actually creating the foundation for an entirely new form of galactic civilization. Councillor Morthek's form brightened, indicating strong agreement. The humans were not trying to join our society. They were quietly building a better one around us. One based on cooperation instead of hierarchy. Trust instead of fear. Growth instead of control. The implications were staggering. While the Council had been focused on maintaining their ancient power structures, humanity had been demonstrating a completely different approach to galactic governance, and it had been working better than anything the Council had achieved in 1,000 years. Sir, Sub-Archon Keth Valar interrupted, we're receiving reports of a new development. Long-range sensors are detecting massive construction activity in the Outer Rim territories, far beyond our normal patrol routes. The tactical display showed energy signatures unlike anything in Council databases. Enormous structures being built at impossible speeds, using technologies that seemed decades ahead of current galactic standards. Sir, the sensor operator continued, we're also detecting ships, thousands of them. The energy signatures are unusual. Some match known species. We've had limited contact with the Ultrani, the Corvani, the Free Worlds Consortium. But they're all in the same area, apparently working together. That's impossible. General Korthvek protested. Those species have been isolationist for centuries. They refuse all contact with galactic civilization. Unless, Counselor Morthek said quietly, someone had been making contact with them separately. Someone who understood that there were alternatives to the Council's way of doing things. The chamber fell into stunned silence, as the truth became clear. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for their expulsion from Council space. They had been building something entirely new. Something that included all the species the Council had dismissed as unimportant, primitive, or troublesome. Archon Zeth Kalar stared at the display showing the massive construction projects in the Outer Rim. How long? He asked quietly. How long have they been planning this? Unknown, sir. But based on the scale of construction, this project has been in development for years, possibly decades. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The humans had never been trying to reform the Council from within. They had been evaluating it, learning from it, and building something better to replace it. The Council's rejection had simply given them permission to stop pretending they needed the old system. Open a channel to Earth, the Archon commanded. Sir, we're receiving automated responses only. All human diplomatic channels have been closed to Council communications. The Archon slumped in his chair, the weight of his mistake finally crushing his pride. The Council had dismissed humanity as primitive and emotional, but the humans had been playing a game so sophisticated that the Council hadn't even realized they were players until the game was over, and humanity had won. 6 months after humanity's departure, Concordia Prime sat in partial darkness. The atmospheric systems had finally failed completely, and emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through the once magnificent Council chambers. Half the station's sections had been sealed off, due to life support failures that no one could repair. Archon Zeth Kalar sat alone in his private quarters, reading the latest disaster reports by the light of a portable illumination device. The numbers were beyond catastrophic. Zelth 7 had lost over 10 million people to the plague. The Vorthak mining worlds had suffered complete economic collapse. Trade between species had dropped to levels not seen since the barbaric ages before the Council's formation. Worse, the military situation had become hopeless. Without the human-maintained security systems, Council space had become a target for every raider, pirate, and hostile force in the galaxy. 3 more worlds had fallen to alien attacks in the past month. The Council's once mighty fleets were crippled by psychological problems among their crews and commanders who could no longer function without the human therapists who had kept their minds whole. A soft chime indicated an incoming message on his personal communicator. Zeth Kalar almost ignored it. Most communications these days brought only more bad news. But something about this signal was different. It was coming through channels that had been closed for months. The holographic projector activated, and Elena Vasquez appeared in his chamber. But she looked different now. Instead of the simple diplomatic attire she had worn as Earth's ambassador, she now wore clothing that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. Behind her, Zeth Kalar could see what appeared to be a massive space city, its spires stretching beyond the edges of the projection. Archon Zeth Kalar, Elena said, her voice carrying a warmth that seemed out of place given the Council's current situation. I hope this message finds you in good health. Ambassador, he started, but she raised a gentle hand. Director Vasquez now, actually. Director of the Human Expansion Collaborative. But please, call me Elena. I think we've moved beyond formal titles. Don't you? Zeth Kalar noticed that Elena's title included the word human, but the organization she mentioned was the Human Expansion Collaborative. The implications were significant. I'm sure you have questions, Elena continued. And frankly, you deserve answers. The Council asked us once why humanity approached problems differently than other species. You never really let us finish our explanation. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, she gestured, and the background shifted to show a vast construction site in space. Thousands of ships from dozens of species worked together, building structures that defied conventional understanding of engineering. Zeth Kalar recognized some of the ships: Altrani deep space vessels, Corvani science ships, Free Worlds consortium carriers. Species that had refused all contact with the Council were working side by side. The answer was simple, Elena said. We saw the galaxy not as it was, but as it could be. We saw potential where others saw problems. We built bridges where others built walls. We chose to lift others up because we understood that helping others thrive meant everyone prospered. The image changed to show a medical facility where human doctors worked alongside alien healers, treating patients from species Zeth Kalar had never seen before. The plague that was killing millions on Zelth 7 was being cured here, using techniques that combined human medicine with healing traditions from across the galaxy. You see, Archon, while the Council was focused on maintaining order among 12 species, humanity was making friends with hundreds of species. The ones you called primitive, troublesome, or unimportant. The ones who were too small to matter, too distant to concern yourselves with, too different to understand. Elena's smile was sad but not unkind. We spent decades learning from them, sharing with them, growing together. While the Council debated proper protocols for dealing with the Kerosi refugee crisis, we were already working with the Kerosi to develop new agricultural techniques. While the Council argued about territorial disputes between the Draxi and Marinti, we were teaching their children to play games together. The display showed schools where alien children from dozens of species learned alongside human teachers. It showed research stations where scientists from civilizations the Council had never contacted worked on problems the Council didn't even know existed. It showed trade networks that spanned galactic distances, built on trust and mutual benefit, rather than fear and control. The Council chose order over growth, tradition over innovation, isolation over cooperation, Elena continued. These are your choices to make. But understand this. The galaxy is vast, and there are countless species out there who share humanity's vision. Zeth Kalar felt a chill as he realized what she was really saying. The Council represented only a tiny fraction of galactic civilization. While they had been maintaining their rigid hierarchy among 12 species, humanity had been building something much larger. We've been busy these past months, Elena said. And the display changed to show a map of the galaxy that made Zeth Kalar's blood freeze. Council space appeared as a small cluster of stars in one corner. But spreading across the rest of the galaxy was a network of connected systems that dwarfed the Council's territory by orders of magnitude. The Human Expansion Collaborative now includes over 400 species, Elena announced casually. Not as subjects or clients, but as equal partners. We've established 17 major hub systems, each one supporting multiple civilizations, working together on shared goals. Our combined research capabilities have solved problems that individual species struggled with for millennia. The statistics were staggering. The collaborative's trade volume exceeded the Council's by a factor of 10. Their technological advancement rate was accelerating exponentially as hundreds of different scientific traditions shared discoveries. Their military capabilities were beyond measurement, not because they built weapons, but because they had created a network of mutual defense so comprehensive that no aggressive force could threaten any member without facing retaliation from hundreds of allied civilizations. But this isn't about power, Elena said, as if reading his thoughts. It's about potential. Every species has something unique to contribute. The Altrani understand deep space navigation like no one else. The Corvani have mathematical insights that revolutionize engineering. The Free Worlds consortium has developed social structures that eliminate poverty and conflict. She paused, and her expression became more serious. Humanity's role was never to lead this collaboration. Our role was to connect everyone else, to translate between different ways of thinking, to find common ground between species that seemed incompatible. We became the bridges that let everyone else build something amazing together. Zeth Kalar found his voice. What? What do you want from the Council? Elena looked surprised. Nothing, Archon. We want nothing from the Council. This message is just courtesy. I suppose. An explanation of why we left so quietly when you asked us to go. But surely you want revenge? Recognition of your mistake? Reparations for... No. Elena's voice was gentle but firm. We don't want revenge, Archon. We want something much more important. We want the galaxy to thrive. All of it. Every species, every civilization, every individual who dreams of something better than what they have now. The display changed one final time, showing the space city where Elena stood. But now, Zeth Kalar could see that it wasn't just one structure, it was dozens of interconnected habitats, each designed for different species, all working together as a single community. The door is always open, Elena said. Not just for the Council, but for every species that wants to be part of something larger. We judge no one for their past choices. We ask only that those who join us commit to the same principles we've always followed. Cooperation over competition. Growth over control. Hope over fear. She looked directly into the camera, and Zeth Kalar felt as if she were speaking directly to him. You taught us something important, Archon. You showed us that even the most advanced civilizations can become trapped by their own success, paralyzed by the need to maintain systems that no longer serve their people's needs. We're grateful for that lesson, but we also learned that there's always another way. Always a path forward for those willing to take the first step. Humanity took that step long ago, and we've been walking that path with our friends ever since. The transmission began to fade. We wish the Council well in whatever future you choose to build. But remember, the galaxy is vast, and it's full of friends you haven't met yet. When you're ready to meet them, we'll help you find the way. Elena's image disappeared, leaving Zeth Kalar alone in his darkened chamber. For a long time, he sat in silence, processing what he had learned. The humans hadn't been expelled from galactic civilization, they had graduated from it. While the Council had been jealously guarding their small corner of the galaxy, humanity had been building bridges to everywhere else. A soft knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Sub-Archon Keth Valar entered, carrying yet another stack of emergency reports. Sir, we've received formal requests from the Kerosi Federation, the Sindathi Union, and 3 other council members. They want permission to open diplomatic channels with the Human Collaborative. Zeth Kalar looked at his aide's hopeful expression. Even now, the Sub-Archon was thinking in terms of permission and formal channels. The old ways of thinking that had led them to this disaster. Tell them, Zeth Kalar said quietly, that the Council no longer has authority over such decisions. Each species must choose their own path now. He stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars that surrounded their failing station. Somewhere out there, hundreds of species were working together to build something unprecedented. Something that humanity had shown them was possible. Sir, Keth Valar asked uncertainly. Zeth Kalar made a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. Prepare a message to the Human Collaborative. Personal communication from me to Director Vasquez. Sir, what should the message say? The Archon considered carefully. Pride warred with necessity, tradition with survival, fear with hope. Tell her, he said finally, that we're ready to learn. Outside the viewport, the stars seemed a little brighter, as if the galaxy itself was welcoming them home.